So I want to rap to you a little bit. I'm really excited about making this video. I want to rap to you a little bit about Malcolm X, a case study on free speech. First, I want to note, yes, I know for a fact that the videos that I've made where I have notes are the videos that have gotten the most views. So I'm not, I really am not trying to shoot myself in the foot by continuing to make videos where I don't have notes. However, it is just easier to do. It's more organic, and while the organicness can be detrimental, I do also make good points. And part of that organicness is then taking those points and those points and those points to bring together and make notes on all of those points, and then make one unifying video. Maybe that's what I'll do at some point, or maybe make a blog post or whatever the fuck. I don't know. Anyways, and that's part of the shtick, I guess, and part of this channel. At any rate, so Malcolm X, a case study on freedom of speech. So right now, as people are well aware, there's all this discussion about, X should not be allowed to speak. X as in anyone, as in the variable. X should not be allowed to speak. White nationalists, white supremacists. And then people are conflating what a nationalist is versus a supremacist. Yes, nationalists can be supremacists, but not all nationalists are supremacists. I don't think it's necessarily true either that all supremacists are nationalists, but I'd probably say more supremacists are nationalists than nationalists are supremacists. At any rate, and you can have nationalists and supremacists of all shades and stripes. At any rate, as we've discussed before, the problem with censoring someone is that you're shutting off any chance of challenging their distortions of reality, and therefore you're not going to be able to engage with them, get them to change their mind and learn and grow and edify. They're just going to become more and more stubborn and radical in their batshit crazy beliefs. So that's why engaging someone in conversation with, when they have stupid jackass beliefs is important. It might not get anywhere. Depending on the person, more likely than not, it won't get anywhere. But it's much more effective than engaging in violence with them. Excuse me. So that brings me to Malcolm X. Now, I studied Malcolm X in high school. I studied a lot of black figures in high school. I still am really into hip-hop. Grandmaster Flash, Eric B. and Rakim, Public Enemy, the whole gamut of things. Hip-hop, and then versus rap. Yes, I'm one of those who makes the distinction. Never really gotten much into NWA and those sorts of things. Anyways, but so I've done quite a lot of studying on black culture and black figures. And Malcolm X is probably my favorite civil rights figure, precisely because he is such an excellent case study in free speech, and such an excellent case study in the grayness, I guess, of man and of man's deeds and of man's legacy. So, Malcolm X, for those who don't know, and I'm kind of rusty because it's been a minute, but Malcolm X, he started his life as a criminal, breaking into houses, robbing people. He pimped girls out, if I'm remembering correctly. And then in prison, he found this guy who showed him the Nation of Islam, which, for those who don't know, and this is important, and I think I've mentioned this in another video, but Black Lives Matter is essentially just an offshoot of Nation of Islam. And what the Nation of Islam is I mean, it's kind of a chicken or the egg thing, but it's black nationalism through an Islamic lens, or rather, Islam through a black nationalist lens. And so what that means is that it takes the tenets of Islam, and then it says it layers that with the. So you know how they lay down. I don't know why this is the image I'm getting, but they have maps, and then like on top of that they'll have a plastic thing, and then you can draw lines. So overlaid on top of the Islamic map, if you like, they have the drawings of black nationalist ideology. And so what black nationalism is and again, this does bleed into supremacy. What nationalism is, I'll leave black and white at the door. What nationalism is, and it does bleed into supremacy, is X is the best, and here's why, and they'll drag things out to point to it. And it's usually all flawed bullshit. Like race realism is something that I've looked into a little bit. I've not looked extensively into, but I've looked into it a little bit. And some of the things seem a bit valid, but they also definitely appear to be doing the same things that a lot of SJWs do, where they just draw all these false conclusions. They say, oh, well, it appears that, blacks have like lower IQs. Like that's the kind of like one of the main things about race realism is that racists have different IQs and things like that. But so they'll say, oh, well, in this test, that we did, blacks have lower IQs. But to my knowledge, anyways, like those tests, like they don't control for anything. So it's like they just take blacks and whites regardless of status or education, and they'll look at arrest records or IQ, things like that, and they'll say, oh, well, see, there's a fucking difference, and I don't know for a fact that that's what they've done in all of these things, because again, I have not studied all these things because I work too damn much. But it's my strong suspicion, and it's definitely borne out in certain cases of certain things I've seen. But it's just a very generalized thing, because to a point, I don't believe that all race realists are supremacists or nationalists, but to a point, there is always, again, that tribalist in all of us that wants to see us as the superior. We never want to look at ourselves as the schlubs, as the inferiors, as we've discussed in other videos. At any rate, I've strayed off the topic a little bit. So let me just jump right back into Malcolm X. So Malcolm X, that's what. So in prison, finds this guy who starts talking to him about the Nation of Islam. So again, Islam through the black nationalist lens. I'm going to divert a little bit here. But on this, there's a scene in the movie Malcolm X, and I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, this was in his autobiography as well. But there's a scene where, they're talking about Jesus, and the guy goes, well, Jesus was black. It's white people who portrayed him as white and blah, blah, blah. And like, I've always had an issue with, and this is essentially the fundamental SJW thinking. They literally see things as black or white. If a black person, I mentioned this in another video, if a white person punches a black person, they say, well, automatically it's because this person hates someone. It's like, no, like this person like robbed them or looked at them funny, or like is just being a dick or whatever, or the person who punched them is just being a dick. Like, why does that automatically have to be the conclusion? So like this whole, oh, Jesus was white, Jesus was not white, but racist white people just had to have Jesus be white. It's like, Why is that the conclusion you jump to? It's much easier if you are, whatever your skin color is, when you sit down and read a book, you automatically, if you are reading a book and there's no character description, which I don't think I've ever read a book that describes the character extensively, unless it's like important to the story. But you attribute certain things about that character that reflect yourself or people you know. It's not out of any racial animus or fucking hatred or thinking that you're superior. It's, oh, this guy Bob in the book. How can I relate to Bob in the book to suck myself into the story and be emotionally invested? Well, Bob, he sounds like he's a lot like me. He's a bit introverted. He's 23 years old, and okay, likes tapes. So I kind of like tape, and I'm 23 years old and a little bit introverted. So yeah, why not? I guess he could be me, and he could be white and bald and whatever. That's not me saying, oh, I think I'm the best. Like, go fuck yourself. Anyways, and at any rate, Jesus wasn't fucking black either. So, like, go fuck yourself. At any rate, so the point there is like, no, it's not that they're racist. That's not the intention. I mean, it's much more likely that whoever conceived the notion of Jesus as white was a white person who just, their frame of reference as a white person is to assume that someone is white. Just because that's what we do. Everyone, all of us, it's what we do. We assume our qualities onto other people. Not just our skin color, but how we act and how we treat people. Which is why, kind of bleed over here into my other channel a little bit, but which is why when we meet unhealthy psychotic people, we can't even wrap our heads around it because we are healthy, not psychotic people. So we're just going to get, the shit abused out of us, and we can't figure out why someone would act like that because it's not within our sphere of reality. At any rate, for more on that, go to Surviving the Female Narcissist. Anyways, back to Malcolm X. So this cat shows him Nation of Islam. So he gets out of prison, converts, starts talking, starts going to meetings, what have you. So is a very black nationalist figure. And then, in fact, in one rather humorous point of in the movie, and of course this was Spike Lee, and he has his own agenda. Not that I necessarily doubt that this ever happened, but in one incredibly hilarious part of the movie, he's being monitored by the FBI. Not that I'm saying that didn't happen, because that most definitely did. But at one point, one of the agents remarks to the other, I can't remember what it was that they were monitoring, but I think there was some talk that Malcolm, brilliantly portrayed by Denzel Washington, by the way, I think he says something about taking to the streets or something like that. And then it cuts to the FBI agents listening in on the call. And one of them says to the other, "This guy makes King look like a saint." And that's fucking hilarious. Anyways, shit, where was I going with that? Yeah, okay. So, and that's fucking hilarious. And it's hilarious for a few reasons, is that in reality, Dr. King did not believe in violence. He just believed that nonviolence was the most effective way to go about change. And he was right. And now we're going to jump into this. Malcolm found out he was right and said, oh. And so how did he find out he was right? Well, part of the Islamic tradition is that you make a pilgrimage to Mecca, to their holy land, and to, get a perspective and things like that. And so, as part of his pilgrimage to Mecca, which he only did because of his Muslim faith, which he only had because he was in prison, and it's a Muslim faith through a black nationalist lens. In no small irony, he goes there as a black nationalist and sees all the black and white people living together in peace and harmony, and he goes, oh, maybe black people don't need their own fucking land. Maybe everyone really can get along. Maybe Martin was right. Maybe he wasn't a fucking Uncle Tom. Pardon me while I adjust here. So then he goes back to America and starts speaking out against the Nation of Islam and saying, yeah, the nation is bullshit. They're racists and all these things. And then he ends up getting killed for it. He ends up getting killed for pivoting, speaking peace, because the violent racial separatists, the supremacists, the nationalists within the Nation of Islam did not want peace. They don't want peace. Just like BLM, which is an offshoot of Nation, doesn't want peace. They want their own land. They want to be recognized as, superior, as fucking special. And guess what? None of us are special. We're not. Period. So, why exactly is Malcolm X a great case study for free speech? Well, let's look at this. First, I want to say that monitoring, keeping an eye on someone's speech or movements, not within a governmental capacity, because that is fraught with issues, however legitimate the concerns may be. I'm not going to get into the morality of that or the libertarian ethics of that, but those are legitimate concerns to have, because during this time, the 60s, the 70s, we were fighting a war against communism, and so there was and a lot of prominent black figures, I believe Malcolm X included, were sympathetic to communism. I know Dr. King went to some communist function. I also know Richard Wright, a very prominent author, was really involved with the Communist Party, or had some connection with the Communist Party. And so part of, a Nixon aide admitted this like four years ago or something, 3 years ago, that part of the war on drugs was to bust up the black community, because the black community and anti-war activists, because that was their into disrupting the communist sympathizers within the country. Was it right to do? I don't think it was. I think the war on drugs is largely a waste of time. But that's a completely different conversation to have at a completely different time. Now, was the primary motivation there racism and hatred of black people? No, not necessarily. The primary motivation there was breaking up a possible insurrection within the country and sympatheticness to the war that we were fighting overseas, because what good is defeating an idea overseas, which, spoiler alert, you can't defeat an idea, if the idea is brewing here? At any rate, so what was I saying? So looking at and listening to someone's ideas and their associations is important and is healthy. Again, divorce that of, FBI monitoring and things like that. In a interpersonal context, looking at who someone associates with, looking at the ideas they espouse or the meetings that they attend is important, because it does give you a picture of things, does give you an idea of things. However, only looking at what someone, the meeting someone goes to is not a fair representation of what they necessarily believe. Because went to a Refuse Fascism meeting, and I don't align with them at all. I went there because I'm, trying to. Frankly, I went there because I thought there were going to be a bunch of black shirts, but I'm also going there as, an infiltrator, an observer, what have you. So if someone were to just look, for whatever reason, just look at a one isolated incident and say, oh, well, he obviously fucking hates Donald Trump and whatever, and I'm not a fan of Donald Trump, but it's like, no, I just went there to go there. But if you look at the totality of me, you'll see, okay, he's very liberty-minded, and obviously he doesn't think Donald Trump is a fascist, but he's also not a fan of him. Anyways, so this goes actually to the larger point. My rambling here is getting somewhere. The larger point I'm trying to make here is that Malcolm X was a great case study for free speech, precisely because if he had been shut down by the government, if his ideas of, and him being a nationalist and potentially, I guess in some regards a supremacist, was enough for him to be shut down and censored, he would not have grown. He would not have evolved. He would have radicalized further. But instead, because he was not shut down, because he was not censored, because he had free association and free movement and free thought and free speech, he was able to see that those nationalist ideas were horseshit, and was able to see, oh, we really can all be peaceful and live and love together and learn together and grow together and edify ourselves and the country and the world. And then he got killed for that. He got killed for that by his people. Now, the issue, and so I love Malcolm X. I love Malcolm X precisely because of that entire transformation that we get to see take place. And so it's a perfect demonstration of the grayness of man, the middle path of man, the pendulum swinging of man. And so the big problem I have is when these fucking savages, these fucking separatists of people like BLM want to claim, not only do they want to claim Malcolm, but they also want to claim Dr. King, which is a complete bastardization of Dr. King, if ever there was one. But they want to claim Malcolm as a separatist, and it's like, no, you fucking jackasses. That is not all Malcolm was. And that is hardly what Malcolm was. Malcolm was pissed off. He was fucking angry. And then he started actually digging, getting really into it, and said, oh, I was fucking wrong. He was a free thinker. He was an intelligent man. Y'all would actually do good to actually be free thinkers like he was. So Malcolm X is a great case study for free speech. So don't shut down nationalists and separatists and supremacists. Don't shut them down. Because guess what? You're never going to actually be able to eradicate any ideas, period, ever. Because guess what? They still exist. All of these ideas still exist, and they will always exist. And that's okay. All you can do is stop action. You can't stop words and you can't stop thoughts. Nor should you want to. Because if Malcolm X's thoughts and words were stopped, then he wouldn't have come around to peace. And he wouldn't have, frankly, exposed the true agenda of separatists of the Nation of Islam and how they don't want peace. None of these separatists do. But they shouldn't be shut down. They should be given a chance to see things for themselves and to come to the logical, rational conclusion that we can all coexist, just like Malcolm did. If he had been shut down, we would all be deprived of that. And ironically, of course, he was shut down. But it wasn't by Whitey, it wasn't by the government, it was by his people. So don't shut down ideas you disagree with. Don't shut down views that are repugnant. I gotta tell you, those first minutes of the movie Malcolm X, especially where he's speaking about how white people are the devil, those are a little bit uncomfortable to watch. Ain't gonna lie. A little bit uncomfortable to watch. But then seeing him get it is beautiful. And that's why I fucking love Malcolm X. That's why everyone should love Malcolm X and study Malcolm X. Yes, you too, BLM. You should. Stop bastardizing him and know what he actually was. And that's why Malcolm X is a great case study on what a free thinker is and on what free speech is and the importance of it and what it does and how we really can all come around if we just use our fucking brains. So don't shut down things that you don't agree with. Talk, speak, listen, understand, bring them around. We can all come to an agreement. We can all come to see that peace is possible, coexistence is possible, that forced multiculturalism is bullshit, that forced acceptance of batshit craziness is bullshit, and that cultural commuting, respect for people's cultures, blending people's cultures by choice, free association, is healthy and the best way to go about things. And to live and let live with people who don't like us. But to also try to engage with people who don't like us. And learn and grow and edify and educate. So don't shut down things you don't like. Talk instead. You might just bring someone around. And you could expose, their former friends' hypocrisies if they decide to kill that person. Which would be unfortunate for that person, obviously. But anyways, Malcolm X, a great case study for free speech. If you don't know much about Malcolm X, you should look him up. Read the book. It's a quick read, easy read, fascinating read. A tremendous read, actually. Malcolm X, and a case study of free speech. Until next time, speak, listen, understand.